G'day everyone and welcome to a new tutorial on Blender Guru. It's been a while since I uploaded a new one and because with the launch of the Nature Academy and everything, but it's finally here, so yeah, let's get into it. I originally planned for this tutorial to be on a street scene, and this is kind of a street scene, but yeah, I decided it was going to take far too long to model all of the buildings and things like that, so I just turned it into a suspension bridge instead. So yeah, so we're going to be learning a number of different things in this tutorial. Biggest one, I suppose, is complex modeling. So this is quite an unusual looking shape, quite hard. But yeah, I'm going to show you very simply how to do that using arrays, mirrors, and the curve modifier. As well as that, we're also going to be modeling things like this hand barrier here, a couple of street lamps thrown in, the road, bit of texturing on the barriers and things like that as well. The background, by the way, is 100% just an image, if you didn't know that already. But yeah, so hopefully you're going to learn a couple of new things and have a bit of fun. So let's go ahead now and get into it. So open up a new scene now in Blender. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to model that road. So I'm going to replace the cube with a plane. Okay, and now just looking at it from the top view mode, I'm going to scale it by the y-axis like this. Just somewhere to about there. Looks pretty good. And what I'm going to do now is jump into front view mode, and I'm going to model one of those barriers. Okay, so really simple. I'm just going to use the box tool, just select those vertices right there, and I'm going to extrude it upwards, then extrude it across, and extrude it downwards like so. And then just to give a little bit of a footpath, I'm going to create an area like that. A little bit of a raised lip there. You're probably not even going to be able to see this in the render, but it's alright. So something like that should be fine. And because I'm lazy and I want to save time, I'm going to... Oh, what have I done there? Oh, okay. Well, it's only just... That's great, isn't it? Let's try that again. Box tool, extrude, let's check. Okay, now it's, I don't know what happened there because I used the box tool before. Anyway, let's just do that quickly again. And extrude it upwards. And then extrude downwards. Anyway, you get the picture. Yeah, so I'm lazy, so I want to make it so that the barrier is on the other side. So instead of modeling it myself, what I'm going to do is go to the modifier here and then select mirror. Now it's going to mirror that based on that origin point right there. So what we need to do is take this vertex here and make sure it's in line, so it's in the middle of our object. So turn on clipping, and now if you just slide that vertex all the way along, it's going to stop when it hits the middle. And now you can see we have a perfectly mirrored road. Okay, now I'm going to save this just so that it is safe from crashing. And I'm going to position the camera now. So just jumping into front view mode. If I hit Control Alt number pad 0, it's going to snap the camera to my location, provided the camera is selected first. And I'm just going to change the aspect ratio of the camera as well. So I want it to be about 1000 by 1400, like that, which is a little unusual. I normally just stick to the 1080p, but I want to get kind of a bit more of a vertical scale type look to it. So that's why I'm doing it this way. And another cool tip, which is something I learned very recently from, I think it's blenderarchitect.com. There was a little tip there. If you go to the camera options, if you go underneath here, underneath display, you've now got these composition overlay options. So if you just turn on thirds, you can see that it now puts this little grid over the camera view, which is really neat, because previously always had to try and guess where the rule of thirds were. If you don't know what the rule of thirds are, basically try and make things that are on these 4 points there be the focus of the scene. So I want the end of my tunnel to be the focus, so I'm positioning that little cross there about there. And then when the rest of the bridge is above it, it's going to fill up the rest of the scene. So just kind of a rule of thumb to go by. Okay, and now that we're up to it, let's go ahead and texture that road. So we want to obviously give a different texture to the barrier than we do the road. So what I'm going to do is select these vertices right here. And in fact, those vertices there as well. I'm going to hit P and then make it a separate object. Okay, and I'm also now going to select these over here and make that a separate object as well. You could have modeled them individually if you wanted to, but it just saves us time because now it's all perfectly mirrored and everything, so that's all right. I'm just going to fix up that because that is a mess. Okay, not even going to see that. Anyway, okay, so first things first, going to texture that road. So we're going to have to UV unwrap the road first. And because we're using the Mirror Modifier, it's always good practice. Apply it before you try to do any UV unwrapping. It's just going to save problems later. So to UV unwrap it, I'm just going to drag that across there, divide it, and select UV Image Editor, open image. And the one that I'm going to use is called Roads 72. This is one I grabbed off cgtextures.com. So in top view, I'm going to hit U and then select Project from View. Now I've got an exact kind of copy of that right there. So I now just need to scale this up until basically it's there. So I want just a little bit sort of on the shoulder of the road there, just to fill it up. So something like, I think something like that should be fine. And now if I just go to the materials, add a new material, turn the specularity off, add a new texture, image, and then just select that same texture and set it to UV. If I'm going too fast for you, I apologize. It's just that we've got a lot of things to get through in this tutorial. So there you go. You can see the road is now textured fine. And now I've closed that. Shouldn't have done that. Anyway, now we're going to texture the barrier. Okay, so this one's a little bit harder, but it's not that hard. Okay, just going to move that across. Okay. So with the barrier selected, I'm going to hit U, but I'm going to choose the top option, unwrap. Okay, it's given us this here. So I'm just going to hit SX0, SX and then 0. And basically what that's doing is it's just flattening it because it was a little bit crooked before. So it's now perfectly flat. Just makes it, yeah, a little bit better for unwrapping. And the texture that I'm going to use is called, at least I think it's, no, it's not that one. Wait, where is it? Something. Let's pull up my little viewer here so I can see. Oh, it's okay. It's Concrete New 34. Anyway, I'll put links there for you so you can get them yourselves. Okay, so I'm just going to select one of the side barriers there now. I'm going to hit that little button down there, and that's going to make it so that it shows us which ones of the barriers is selected. Okay. So front view. Okay, there we go. That's probably what I did before, actually, when when I was extruding it. I didn't select, it wasn't in wireframe mode, which is why it wasn't selecting the vertices behind it. Anyway, little tip for you. Make sure you do that. Okay, so I'm going to position this to be about here. Okay. These vertices, I'm going to move up to be here. And the other ones on this side shouldn't even matter because it's going to be on the other side. It's not even going to be shown to the camera, so it doesn't even matter. In fact, I could probably, you know what? Let's just do that. I'm going to delete that face because you don't need it. So there you go. And, oh, what's happened there? All right, so I've screwed it up a bit. I wouldn't have seen that if I hadn't deleted it. There you go. Okay. All right, that's good enough. So I want it just basically so that this edge that's right there is at the top, because you can see the way these leaks are kind of streaming down it. So if you had it the wrong way around, obviously the leaking type effect is going to be the wrong way around. So anyway, now that's done, I'm just going to extrude it along the X axis. So that's S and then X, and that's extruding it like this. And it's going to be just kind of a little bit of a play around to make sure you get it right, but something about there. Now if we just add a new material very quickly, set this texture, image. I'm just going to choose the same image. Let's just do that. Concrete New, UV, and let's hit render. Okay, so that's not too bad. If you find that it's stretching kind of that way, kind of like it's kind of being torn apart, then you just basically want to extrude that out just a little bit further. Yeah, just kind of, you have to play around with it to get the effect you want, but that looks pretty fine. There's a little bit of like repeating texture there that you can kind of see, but it's not that noticeable. If you wanted to, you could create a second texture and overlay it over the top of it. But yeah, that's looking fine so far. So I'm now going to do a little bit of lighting. So changing the default lamp here to a sun lamp, like so. I'm going to change the energy to 2, and I'm going to make the color just slightly yellow, like that. And I'm going to rotate it to be about there. And now if we render this, you can see we have this result. I might just turn it just not that yellow, because that's possibly a bit too much. I'm not sure. I've got that F-Lux program turned on, and I'm recording this at nighttime, so it's changed the colors of my monitor to be kind of yellowy so it doesn't hurt your eyes as much. And so this looks really yellow on my screen right now. So I should probably turn it off, but anyway, that's all right. Okay, so that's looking not bad. You can see that there's only one direct light source at the moment, which is a problem. We want to make it look like there is, you know, sky lighting, because in reality, in, you know, nature, if you look outside, you'll see that there's the direct sunlight, but then in the shadows, you'll see there's like a blue tint, and that is the sky lighting the shadows. So to get that effect, underneath the world settings here, we're going to turn on environment lighting, which is a relatively new feature of Blender. And I'm going to change it from white to sky color. And the sky color is this one here, which says zenith color, which makes a lot of sense, of course. And I'm going to turn that color there to be, you know, kind of a bluish color, like so, something like that. Change the energy to a 0.5. Set the gather to approximate. And the reason I'm doing that is because I want to turn on indirect lighting. Indirect lighting is so that you get bounce lighting off various objects, and it currently requires approximate to be enabled. I'm also going to turn off fall off, which basically defines, you know, how far bounce lighting can go. Higher it goes, then the less distance the bounce lighting can travel. And also to speed up rendering, this is something probably a lot of you don't know about, but there's that error value right there. By default, it's set to 0.25. Change that to 1, okay? And that's going to speed up rendering a lot, and you're not really going to see any big side effects, at least in a scene of this size. Okay, so you can see that it now has a little bit of a light bluish tinge to it. So I'd say that is looking quite good. And if you want to, just as kind of an extra thing, well, I'm going to turn on Ambient Occlusion as well. Let's turn that up. Hasn't made much of a difference there. But to fake the Ambient Occlusion just a little bit more, I'm going to add a new texture. This is something I do quite a lot, just faking Ambient Occlusion. Set the texture to blend. Underneath colors, turn on ramp, and then, what are we seeing? Material. Let's hit flip, and then make that white material there black instead. Set this to vertical, okay? And then change the mapping to UV, and then let's turn that down to about there. And now you can see on the barrier, you've got just a little bit of a darkened kind of look to the barrier, and that's faking ambient occlusion. Now obviously that's a bit too much, so I'm going to turn that back a bit and also turn down the influence amount to 0.5 or something. Yeah, something like that. Anyway, you can play around with it just to get, you know, a nice-ish looking result. Something like that, I'd say that's looking quite fine so far. All right, so now we're going to be modeling the barriers, okay? Well, not the barriers, the sort of the handrail. So this is really easy to do. It's just, I don't know, probably a little bit time consuming, I suppose. Just add a cube, first of all. Going to scale that down. And let's see. I'm going to extrude that up. And I want it to be just slightly higher than the actual road barrier. And then I'm going to rotate it inwards like this. This is just a really simple hand barrier design that I got off a kind of a reference photo. Okay, so something like that. And then if you go to the modifier, turn on array, make sure you've got it coming out of the Y amount, so something like that. And then let's turn that up to about 15, okay? You might want to dial back the amount of distance in it so that a small child couldn't fit through it too easily. All right, I just want those rails there to be a little bit thinner, so a little bit more. Oh, not that much. Okay, so something like that is pretty fine, and I might just turn that value up a bit. if you get them too close together, then you can't actually even see through the gaps from the position of the camera. So yeah, something like that is fine. And I'm also going to add a cylinder, turn off cap ends, and let's set the vertices to 16. Doesn't need to be too high res. So something like that. Let's position that at the top there. Okay, set it to smooth shading. Right there. And then this one here as well. And you want it to be just out of it, just a little bit, so that when we, because we're going to be using an array modifier on these to kind of push it out to the rest of the bridge. So something about there so that there's the same amount of gap there as there is there. And now, if I take this, I'm going to duplicate it, turn off arrays, and I'm going to enlarge it. And this is just going to be kind of like one of those support beams. So somewhere like that. And let's just drop this in right here. Okay, cool. So, I'm going to turn on arrays. I mean, not turn on, just hit apply. And then I'm going to group all of these objects together. And I'm going to delete this little pole that's in the middle there. So just delete that. Okay, so now I've got everything looking nice. I'm going to turn on smooth shading. And when you get that, you get these poles have this weird kind of look to it. So turn on an edge split modifier. Set the angle to 88. That's so you get that nice smooth effect there and on the rail itself, but you also get the nice cut edges as well. And then once you've done that, we're going to turn on another array and we're going to make this apply to the Y amount like that. And if you have it so it's stacking up there, it shouldn't be like that. So the rotation is around the wrong way. So let's hit Control A and then hit rotation. Okay. Cool. Awesome. So now you've got a little handrail. Very, very easy, simple design. Just takes, a little bit time consuming. It's not that hard. You can see I'm just stretching that out to the length of the bridge. Very, very quick. Very, very easy. Okay, now we want the exact same thing on the other side. In fact, just to keep things consistent, I'm going to rotate it and put it over here where it should be, really. Because you've got the modeling on all the others. The modeling is on that side, so I want the same thing to be on this one as well. So that's why I'm putting it here. And now you've got that there. You want to make sure that you get that origin point in the center as well. So you can see that my 3D cursor is already in the center there. So if I just hit Control-Alt-C, then you can say origin to 3D cursor, and it puts that little dot there. And now, if I turn on mirror, it puts it exactly in the right spot on the opposite side. So, looking good so far. I'm just going to quickly give this a material. Nothing fancy. Let's just turn that hardness up so it looks kind of like shiny paint. And specularity down a little bit as well. Give that a quick render. And that is how the scene is looking so far. So, I don't know, there's some kind of weird looking shadow going across there. Oh, it's probably from the railing above it. But yeah, it's not looking too bad so far. Okay, cool. So, now what we're going to do is we're going to be modeling the bridge itself. So, this is getting into the complex stuff now. Now, I'm going to be using a reference image that I actually purchased. So, I can't actually share this with you, but I mean, I'm putting it on the screen here, so you can probably... Nope, not that one. You can probably see it anyway, so let's just... Nope, not that one either. Where is it? Okay, this one. Yeah, there we go. So I believe this is a footbridge in Ontario, Canada. I think I've said that name. Ontario, Canada. I think that's how you say it. But yeah, it's really, really cool. I had a look at a number of different suspension bridges, reference images and stuff on the internet. And this one looks really cool. Looks kind of like a roller coaster, kind of. If you flip it up the other way, it's, I don't know. Just looks quite cool. So I thought it would be fun to make. So, yeah, let's create it. So what we're going to do is we're going to do pretty much a similar thing for the handrail. So we're going to be modeling one segment, and then we're going to be, using the array modifier to make that go across the length of the bridge. So what we want to do is model one of those segments. So I'm going to move to a new layer right now. I'm going to add a cylinder. Now this is obviously going to be that thick cylinder there on the side. So I'm going to leave vertices at 32. That's all right. But I want to turn off cap ends. Okay. Okay, just so that it's hollow down the middle there. And I'm going to get a drink. Excuse me, because my voice is getting cracky. Excuse me. All right, turn on smooth shading. And we want to, not extrude, just scale it, then sit there. So hit S and then Y, and then just scale it to something about there. It's important you do that, or else when we model these little support beams here, it's going to be off a little bit. So make sure you scale it, just something like that is fine. And now what I want to do is just bring back the rest of the scene here, and you want to make sure that these poles here are relative to the bridge. Okay, so you can see they're way too thick at the moment. So I'm going to scale that down to, I don't know, somewhere about there. I think is quite fine. That's maybe that's a little bit too small. Anyway, something like that is fine. And you want to position it so that it's just alongside the edge of the little bridge there, along the footpath. And you want to make sure that the origin point is in the center, okay? Because like I said before, we're going to be using, mirrors, arrays, and stuff like that. Okay, so jumping back to our little layer over here. So what we essentially want to do is just model this beam there, that beam there, and then we're going to use the mirror modifier to basically create a nice little crossover effect. So, I'm going to model that little support beam there. So I'm going to add a cube. All right. Scale it down. And let's just scale it along the y-axis. Okay. X-axis, something like that. And I'm just going to rotate it to about there. Maybe it needs to be a little bit thicker. A little bit of playing around to get it right. Nope, I like it better the way it was before. Okay. Okay, so something like that, I think. Then just place it about there. Then grab these vertices right here. And if you go to down here under orientation, if you turn on local, then hit that little button there, you can now just scale along the orientation of the object. Now that's not going to work if you've rotated it whilst in edit mode. So if you don't have that effect, it only works if you rotate things like this whilst in object mode, that you get that kind of, that little local thing, which works really neatly. So okay, so you want to make sure that this support beam is crossing over the edge of that green line there, because that is essentially where that is going to cross in right there. So you want to leave a little bit hanging over on the other side. So I think, let me just see, I think maybe I need to actually scale this up just a little bit further. So let's do that now. All right, push that in a bit. Here we go. Now we're getting somewhere. Alright, so that's why I said you had to make sure that this is extruded out upwards a little bit as well, or else it's not really going to match the reference image there. Okay, but once that is all fine and dandy, I'm going to select that object, and then finally the tube there as well, and I'm going to hit Control J. Now that they're all one solid object, if I go into Modifier and then add a Mirror Modifier, you can see that it's created this little nice effect there that you can see. So it looks quite cool. I don't know. I think there's way too much of a crossover effect there actually. So I am just going to quickly scale these things back again, just a little bit. And I don't have that local thing anymore. So I'm just going to do it by eye, which is annoying, but there you go. Okay, so a little bit of fiddling there. Anyway, that looks fine and dandy. So we want to create just that little kind of a fill in the middle there. So very easy, just add a plane. Drop this in right there and turn on clipping. Position it somewhere about there. You can actually delete one of the vertices as well, and then just create a face off those three vertices, which I don't normally do, but since it's tiny little object like that, it's fine. And let's add a plane in right here. Turn off clipping. Okay, put that in. Push that across. And just to make sure that these are, you know, perfectly aligned, hit S, X, and then 0. And that's just going to align them like so. Okay, so I'm leaving a little bit of a gap between the tube and that little plane. As you can see there in the reference image, there is one. So that's why we're doing that. But otherwise, I think that looks pretty fine. And we're just going to add one more support beam just across this, you know, from there to there. So I'm just going to add a cube, scale that down. Well, what is that? What did I do? Maybe I added a plane. Probably did. All right, a cube. Move that across, and here we go. All right, we're getting there eventually. Slowly but steadily, we're getting there. Okay. Turn on clipping again. It's a lot of repetitive stuff to create something like this, but, you know, it's just one of those things. Okay, cool. So now you got that set up. One final thing we're going to do is move these planes so that they're at the top of our little design there. So just up there, like so. Okay, so underneath it you can see there's that little cutaway area, and then on top it's almost flat. All right, so now I've got that set up. Let's add an array modifier. Set it to be along the y-axis. Again, if you have this problem where it's stacking, just hit Control-A, rotation. And you basically want these two areas there to connect, which currently it's not going to do. We want that beam there to be inside that beam. So we're actually going to have to turn that to below 0, to something about there. And you can see that it's nicely packed away. And so that we don't have any overlapping areas between our two tubes, what I'm going to do is just grab this tube right here and then just push it back till it's in line there, and then turn on merge. And that'll make sure that those two vertex groups merge together. Okay, now I want to make this array count to be about 12, something like that. I'm going to go into edit mode. I'm going to move all of these back now. And you'll notice that, because the reason I'm doing this is you'll have a look at the reference image here, and you'll see that the pattern goes that way, and then once it reaches the top, it flips it. There's a bit of a gap, and then it creates the pattern that way. So that's what we're going to be doing here. So with these modifiers set up, I'm going to add another one, set it to mirror, and make it mirror along the y-axis. And you can see we've got almost the exact effect that we want. Okay, so that's not too bad. One fine... actually, no, we can't really do that, can we? Nope. All right, so we have to apply the array modifier first. So go ahead and do that. Hit apply. All right, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these... oh, actually, no, I forgot it. I knew there was one other thing. So make sure you bring back the array. Okay, we need to make sure that we add some loop cuts in our cylinder there, because once we add, because we're going to be getting that curved effect, so we want to make sure that there's some vertices there for our curving to actually take effect too. Anyway, hit apply there, and now I'm going to extrude that just so that they connect together. Turn on clipping, and they'll snap together like that, so you can't move them anymore. So that is our scene currently. That's the bridge so far. If we just bring back the bridge, just so we can see how it looks in scale, it's not too bad. It's all right. Okay, so that's pretty good. Now what we're going to do is get that nice curve effect. So to do that, I'm going to add a curve, go to curve, and then path. Okay, this just gives you a nice flat looking curve like this. I'm going to scale that up so it fits it to about there. And then go into edit mode, and I'm just going to drag these vertices up there, push them apart a little bit, just to get, a nice arc shape, very similar to a, suspension bridge. In fact, I'm not even sure if it's a suspension bridge. Someone on Twitter said, Andrew, that's not a suspension bridge, that's an arc bridge or something. I don't know, there's, cables dangling down. It looks like a suspension bridge to me. So anyway. So now we've got that done, let's, to make it so that it follows this curve, we need to add a new modifier, curve, as you might have guessed, and then just select the only curve that is there. So if you have this problem, basically you just have to move the curve around until you get it so that it's matching up. Bing, perfect. Okay, now you want there to be an area. So if you bring back the bridge, you'll see what I mean. Let's just drag these along a bit. Okay, now I want there to be, well, first of all, I want there to be more of a curve. Okay, so something about that is fine. But yeah, I want there to be an area because you want it to, obviously, cars and stuff to be able to pass underneath it. So if you had it so that this was like flat down there, obviously no cars and stuff can go underneath there. So you want to make it so that these poles extrude out just a little bit further beyond it. Sort of, yeah, just so there's that nice area underneath it. So to do that, well, let's just first drag these up a little bit further. Maybe just a little bit further even still. Okay, and now going back into edit mode with our object here, and I'm just going to take these this end row of vertices, and I'm just going to drag that down to about there. Just create a few loop cuts along there just by hitting Control R, dropping them in like so. Now you've got a nice little curve, nice little arc, and you've got an area where there's none of that, you know, manifold structuring stuff or whatever you want to call it. Okay, cool. So it's looking not bad so far. So I'm going to pull the camera back a little bit. So maybe just, yeah, I'm going to have to actually increase the length of our road and everything. So let's just do that now. Might screw up the texturing just a little bit, but not too much. So that's all right. Yeah, it should be fairly fine, I think. Oh, I've got the array around the wrong way. Okay, cool. So I'm just going to push this camera back a little bit. So just press G and then Y to move it along the Y axis. And then with the camera selected there, what I'm actually going to do is set the focal length to be 28. And what that means is basically you're going to get more of the scene within view of the camera. So it just kind of makes it look more like a fisheye lens. So if you set that like all the way back like that, then you get, yeah, like this really weird effect. But yeah, anyway, set it to about 28. It should be fine, I think. Okay, so again, looking at the rule of thirds, I want that cross to be right there in the roadway. Something about there. And I might also, to give a little bit of vertigo to the viewer. No, I just think it looks quite cool to have it, you know, at this kind of angle as the reference image. Yeah, it looks quite cool. Anyway, moving along now. Let's create these cables coming down from it. Now, one thing you'll notice with this reference image here is that these cables that are coming down, like if we used that curve modifier thing to create these cables to shoot straight down, it wouldn't work properly because it would try to bend those cables kind of, so you'd have like kind of it coming in like would look like a Ferris wheel, trying to all come into the same central point, but you want the cables to shoot straight down. So you actually need to model those cables and place them by hand, but it's actually not as hard as you'd think. Or maybe it is, I don't know. I don't know how hard you guys think things are. Anyway, so what we need to do is we need to steal one of these vertice rings there, because the first thing we're going to create is this, I don't know, connecting joint, whatever you want to call it. So just taking one of those vertice rows there by holding down Alt, right click to get that loop cut there, and then hit Shift D, then hit Escape, then hit P, and then select Selection, like so. And now if you select at the bottom of that tube there, you'll see this little ring there. So turn off curve. No, what did I turn off there? Oh, I think I turned off array. Okay. Yeah, so turn off curve, turn off array, just so you've got just the mirror remaining. And now I'm going to position this right at the very top there. And I want it to be right on one of those kind of structure joints there. Okay. So that's pretty cool. Now looking at it from the front view, what I want to do is remove part of that circle there. So something about there should be fine. Actually, yeah, maybe one more. So like that. Yeah, okay, that should be fine. I don't know who I'm trying to talk to there, but anyway, I'm talking to myself. So I've got that looking about there. Now you don't want them to be too big or else it's going to be really noticeable to the viewer. because that's what I did a few times. It just looks awful. So make them quite small, something like that. And I'm actually going to use the Mirror Modifier again. So what we're going to do is make this little kind of wing nut thing there. So to save time, that's why we're using the Mirror Modifier. So let me see, what do we have to do? Let's hit Control Alt C and then hit Origin to Geometry. And then let's move that out. Actually, let's turn off that other mirror for the moment. So that's just, we've got that. All right. We could have just changed the axis. Anyway, add another mirror modifier. Extrude it inwards like that. And then set the axis for that to Y. Just so that you've got that happening right there. Okay. So, piece of cake so far. Looking at it from the front view, hit Shift S, then set cursor to selection. That just places it right at that origin point there. And I'm going to add a cylinder. Ta-da! Whoa! Hey, that's pretty cool. Yeah, that's happening because we've got clipping turned on for the mirror. Actually, you know what? Let's delete that, and I'm just going to add a cylinder, and I'm just going to drop it in here. It's just so it's a little bit easier to work with if you have it as a separate object. Okay, so this is just that little white disc that you can see right there. So giving it that kind of effect and scaling it in like so, and just placing it at the end there like that. Now I'm going to duplicate it, scale it inwards again. So we've got that, and this is going to be that painted little wing nut. I keep calling them wing nuts. I don't know if that's what they're called. Anyway, you get the picture. Okay, so to create that kind of little handle coming down there, what I'm going to do is just take these vertices at the bottom, extrude it downwards like so, extrude it a little bit more, and I'm just going to rotate it in slightly. And actually for this, I actually need to make it so that it's this part of this object there. That's why we've got the mirror set up, by the way. So as we do this, extrude it inwards, a little bit more. You can see we have this effect right there. So this is probably way too much detail that you'd need for this, but you know, it can't hurt. So, well, it can hurt. It can hurt your time. Anyway, and I'm just going to make a little wing nut there as well. Again, this is probably way too much detail. Don't know why I'm doing this. I just kind of, sometimes I like try to create things like really quickly, low poly, and then I regret it later because it looks fake, and I go, I should have added more detail. But usually the opposite is the case. Alright, so hit Control J for that. And now we've got that mirror effect happening nicely. Make sure you turn on or add an edge split modifier so you don't have that weird smoothing effect that was happening there. Yeah. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. Now we need to, let's just apply some quick materials to it. So I'm just going to call this, let's call it base white. Alright. We're going to use this same material for the rest of the bridge as well. Turn up the hardness. Coming up to 40 minutes in this tutorial. Wow. Yeah, I knew it was going to be a bit of a long one. And doesn't look like it needs to be. Like you think, suspension bridge, it's quite easy. But no. It requires a little bit more work than that. Okay, so now we need to add another one. Let's just duplicate that base white one. This is going to be that gray kind of wing nut look to it. Going to make it a little bit shinier. And let's apply that to this part right there. Hit assign. You can see, it looks quite cool. And, well, not really. Apply the mirror. And now I'm just going to add from the top view here a nice quick cylinder. Turn off cap ends. Scale that down. Scale it right down. Okay, and this is obviously going to be that pole that shoots all the way down from the top to the bottom. Okay. Like so. Turn on smooth shading. And we're just going to make it part of that other object there. So hit Control J. And yeah, there you go. So to get this pole there, select, I'm just going to hit Control L. Going to give it another material. Let's call this Chrome. Not the browser. You know, the real Chrome, the one before Google came along. Turn up the hardness so it's nice and shiny. And maybe give it a little bit of a freshness as well. just so it's not completely reflective. So, you know, something like that. Just because you can see in the reference image there, those poles are a little bit shiny, so that's why I'm doing this. And make sure you hit assign on that object there. Hit assign, and there you go. Really easy, as I said. That's a lot harder than it should be. I know it's a big pain. Anyway, let's hit Alt G, and that just puts it right in the center there. If you go into edit mode, then just drag that across and then just place it in the right place. And that just ensures you get the origin point exactly where it needs to be. So that's why I'm doing it in this way. Okay, and then just add a mirror modifier. Very easy. Okay, cool. So now basically what we want to do is we want to duplicate each of these objects so that one of them is at every one of these support joints. Now if you hit Shift D and then duplicated it across, it works, and you can see that works fine. But if you edited one of these and you go, oh yeah, there's pole there, I'm going to make the pole a lot shorter because I'm weird, it doesn't affect the other one like that. So that's a problem. You want to make sure that you can edit them all later on very easily. So quick shortcut, Alt D. Now what that's doing is it is duplicating it, but it's duplicating it so that they're linked. Okay, so if now I edit this one here and I say I'm going to make that smaller, you can see that it now edits both of them because they are linked. You can see there in the little object there, it's got a little 2 next to it. So that is a benefit of hitting Alt D instead of Shift D. So there is a little tip for you. So I'm just going to do that for each of these. Really, really simple. You could use an array modifier if you really wanted to, but it would be way too confusing to set up, and it's just one of those things where it's easier just to do it yourself. A few more to go. Almost there. If you're getting bored, I apologize. That is just how it goes. Alt D, Alt D, Alt D. Yeah, that's enough. Okay, cool. So now the scene's looking a lot nicer. Let's go ahead and hit render now, and we should see something that looks better. Yay! Awesome. Okay. Well, one thing we're going to do now is we're going to add a bounce light. So we want to make it look as though the light is bouncing off the road and coming up here and hitting the rest of our little bridge. So to do that, I'm going to add an area lamp. So lamp, area, drop that in right there. Rotate that by 90 degrees so it's facing directly upwards. Change it to area shape is rectangular. Let's make the Y size, drag that all the way out so that it fits the length of the bridge. Then the X as well. So it's somewhere about there. And then let's position that just underneath the road like that. Now it's important you put it underneath the road because what I'm going to do next is I'm going to move our lamp to be on just on layer 2 like this. And I'm also going to move the barriers and the handrail to be on layer 2 as well. Reason for that is I want this lamp here to just affect this bridge there, the barriers that are coming up, so there, and then the handrail as well, but I don't want it to affect the road. So I don't want it to have to try and pass through the road to apply lighting to the rest of the scene. So having that lamp there, just hit this layer only because everything is on layer 2. You can turn on ray shadow if you like, that is fine. And now let's go ahead and hit render again. And look at that, it looks absolutely horrible because the lamp energy is set to 1. Let's turn that back to, 0.1, something like that I think should be a bit nicer. Yeah, I mean, it's not perfect, but maybe just turn it up a little bit more. It's kind of like you don't want to overdo it, but you also just want to try and get a little bit more lighting in those places. Yeah, that's too much. Maybe 1.2. Oh, no, 0.12. And let me just check, got the indirect lighting turned on. Ah, that's another thing. Yeah, set the indirect lighting bounces to 2, and that'll just put a little bit more lighting in kind of these little nooks and crannies there. At least that's, that's what you hope it does, and then it doesn't do it, but yeah. Let me just have a look, check everything here. So you got a shadow that's coming up. Yeah, actually, I think that's part of the problem. Let's turn off shadows for that bounce lamp. Let's turn that off. And I think that should actually give us... Yeah, you don't have that awful kind of shadow problem happening there. Also, turn off specularity as well, because there shouldn't be any specularity from that lamp, because it's bounce lighting. It's kind of like overall lighting. So, yeah, that's not looking too bad. I'd say that's it's pretty good, I'd say. I mean, it could be better, but yeah, whatever. It's all right. Okay, cool. So, the background. Let's drop in the background. So the image that I'm going to use is one that I added before accidentally. It's this one right here, and that is a background from cgtextures.com. If you wanted to, you could go ahead and you could try and create these mountains yourself. You could also join the Nature Academy and you can learn that. But no, we want to save time because, you know, it's kind of like a secondary element to this image. It's not like the center, you know, focal point of the scene. It's not the point of it. So we're saving time. We're going to use an image. Don't be afraid of using images. I mean, you know, it's good to get practice and all that, but sometimes it's good to finish an image as well. So, oh, sorry, I didn't explain what I just did there. Okay. All right. So I'm using a script called the import images as planes. I did a little mini tutorial on that recently as well. But basically what that means is you can now go File, Import, Images as Planes, and then just select the image. You could turn on shadeless, plane dimensions as well. Then just hit Import, and it automatically chooses the correct dimensions for that image. See, it matches that one there perfectly. Otherwise, you'd have to try and guess it yourself. And then you can just rotate it so that it fits everything like this. And you'll notice it's already applied the material, turned on shadeless for you. Everything is done. Really, really simple, really easy. I'm just going to push that into the background a bit because I'm going to duplicate this bridge a few times in a minute. And if you have it so that the background image disappears, that's because you need to turn up the end value for your camera, so the clipping value. Okay, so now let's scale that up. I'm going to rotate it a bit as well. I don't think I did that for my image, but, you know, it's alright. Actually, you know what? No, I don't like that. I don't like that at all. Let's just scale that. Okay, so, yeah, I don't know how this is going to look. Let's give it a render. Hopefully it looks alright. Yeah, that's not bad. I mean, it's alright. I mean, this part here is really annoying me, so we're going to fix that soon as well. No, we're going to fix that now, so let's do that. So we want to make it so that there is a little support beam going across there, a la our reference image, if I can remember it, this one. Oh, you can't even see it, but anyway, let's assume there's a little beam there. It would be silly if there wasn't, so jumping into edit mode right here, I'm going to just grab one of these beams right there. No. Just you. Why are they connected? Ah, because they're merged. Okay. All right. Well, let's... I don't want that one. I just want that one. Unconnect. Unconnect. Oh, that's really annoying me. Let's just duplicate it. Oh, okay. That's all right. All right. Drop that in there. And there you go. We have a support beam. Really quick, really easy. Okay, so other things you could change. The lighting around those beams there is a little bit too extreme, so I'm going to have to turn that down. Maybe a point... Ugh, did it again. 0.08. Okay, because you want that lighting to, you know, hit the tops of it there, but you don't want it to be like really, really bright around near the bottom, because obviously it's brighter towards, the, you know, as it gets closer to the lamp. You know, you can fiddle around with that if you want. Maybe just turn up the skylighting just a touch. Environment lighting, by the way, has an advantage over just using a sky lamp, like just duplicating a sun lamp, because that's how I used to do it. Like just grab that sun lamp, duplicate it, 90 degrees, then make the color like a blue color like this. This is like how I used to always do my sky lighting. Problem with that is that you don't get, you know, overall sky lighting, because, you know, the sky is everywhere, so it needs to be not just in one direction but everywhere. So environment lighting does that for you. So but yeah, I think that's it's looking okay so far. Now what I'm going to do is just well, I'm going to move the camera and the sun lamp to my layer down there. And now I'm just going to grab all of these right there, excluding the background image there. Then hit Shift D, no, sorry, Alt D again, so that they're linked. And make the road so that they're touching like that. Doesn't matter if those poles there are overlapping, that's alright. You're not going to be able to see very far anyway. Okay, and that's just so get a little bit more depth to the image. So give that a render now. It's probably going to add a little bit more to the render times, but hopefully not too much. Should be quite easy. Come on. Yeah, we haven't rendered our sky lighting, the lamp. Let's do that. But it's looking quite good. What we're going to do next is we're going to add a little bit of a glare effect to our image. So if I can just see if I can show you. Just before we start it again, I know you saw it at the beginning, just so I can show you what I mean. So what we're going to do now is we're going to add that little sun glare effect coming off the paint of the bridge. So that's what we're going to do. I'm not sure, you get some like nice even lighting over my bridge, and then on our one it looks kind of a little bit harsher, I think. I think that depends on like the size of these as well. I think maybe this sky color there is a little bit extreme. Maybe it needs to be a little bit paler perhaps. Yeah, like a little bit more down there. I think anyway. Just guessing. But yeah, it's lighting can sometimes take a little bit longer to set up, but anyway. So yeah, so we're going to be adding that nice little sun glare effect that you just saw. So to do that, what we're going to do is jump into our render layers over here. You can see you've got render layers set up. Now we want to create a specular pass, okay? Because that's how we're going to fake that little sun glare effect. So down here, just turn on specular, okay? Now if you render that again, what that's going to do is just create a separate pass. So it's going to be completely black except for the areas where specularity is applying, which if you don't know is light reflecting off objects. So to show you what I mean, jump over to the compositor by hitting Control left arrow. Let's just move this around because I don't like that, never use it. Turn on use nodes. Now normally you wouldn't have that little specular little output there, but because we've checked that, we now have it. So if we go output viewer, this is what the scene looks like, and this is what the specular pass looks like. So you can see what it's doing there. Now what I want to do is just change the material. Yeah, we haven't even applied a material to our bridge. It's probably part of it actually. Yeah, let's do that. Okay. All right, so let's just make this base white, and I'm going to turn up this intensity. Maybe turn up the hardness as well. Not that much, about 375. That should be fine. Because that specular pass is obviously going to be affected by how much specularity, so the intensity of it, and the hardness as well. So before the render pass was looking like too much specularity was applying. So now it's looking a lot better. There's only just like a little bit there. So now we can do whatever we like to that specularity pass there. So I'm going to add a glare node. A lot of this is actually discussed in the Wow Factor, which is an ebook I wrote on compositing, but you know, it's got a number of uses. So I'm just going to throw it in here as well, give you guys a little freebie, show you guys how to do something cool. So what I'm doing here is I'm adding a glare node. Now this is going to, if we turn the threshold all the way down, it's creating a nice little star glare effect there. Okay, so something like that, I don't know, six streaks, I think that could be all right. And then if you've got like too many areas where the glare is affecting it, you can turn that threshold up, and then it will make it occur in less places. And then if you set the mix amount to 0, that means that it'll show the specularity plus the effect that you're occurring to it. But we don't actually want that because you've got specularity in our main image as well, which we're going to be combining soon. So we're going to set that mix amount to 1, so you just get the effect. And I'm going to do similar thing with our little node here. Set that to relative. Let's make that 2. Okay, set that to Y maybe. Yeah, something like that should be fine. So we want to add a mix node to combine these two here. Drop them in like that. Hit add. Okay, you can see the effect we've got there now. And let's duplicate that add node. Drag that in there and then combine it with the rest of our scene. And you can see there, if I hit Alt V, no, Alt V, there we go. You can see we now have a nice little glare effect occurring to that area right there. So it looks quite cool. And I'm hitting V, by the way, just to... so it's Alt V and then V if you want to zoom in and out of your background image. Otherwise, you know, I think that is looking pretty good. Well, what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to be adding a few more slight touches to the scene just to make it a little bit more realistic. You can see the kind of the basic modeling and everything. The scene's looking pretty complete as is, but I'm going to be adding some street lamps down the street now. And also just adding a little bit of texturing to our bridge here, just to kind of, yeah, again, bringing out some of the realism. So first things first, let's model a street lamp. Very, very easy to do so. All we need to do is, excuse me, first thing we're going to do is add in a cylinder. Okay, I'm going to set the number of vertices for that cylinder to 16 and uncheck cap ends. Okay. Alright, I'm now going to scale this all the way down, and I'm going to position it right next to our barrier here. Okay, so somewhere like there. You can see where that is in relation to the scene. Okay, so something like that. And you want to make it so it's thick enough. If it looks too thin, looks quite flimsy. I mean, if you're watching this tutorial, you have electricity in your country, so you know what a street pole looks like. You can check out some reference images online if you want to get more realistic. Okay, so what I need to do is create a bend in this pipe there. So an easy way to do that is to use the spin function, which I very rarely use, but it's all right. It works pretty well. What we need to do is position the 3D cursor kind of around where the pivot point you want it to sort of spin out the curve. So right there is fine. Now if I hit spin, it's now created a spin effect. Now it's spun it in the wrong direction. So underneath degrees, I'm going to set that to minus. And you can also change the number of steps there if you like, but I'm just going to set that to 9. That's fine. In fact, I'm also going to delete these 2 edge loops right there, and then just take that end piece and then extrude it right out. Okay, so something like there should be fine. I think possibly it's a little bit too heavy at the top, so just scaling that down a bit. I'm just going to extrude the little piece in like that. And I'm just going to place a cube right at the end there. Okay, and this is just going to be, you know, the little light fitting at the end. Again, this is really low poly modeling. It basically just gets the job done. It's kind of like a placeholder for something better that should be there, but it's on the way or something. It's yeah, it's quite dodgy. Go into a bit more detail if you like, but that's fine for the task that we're using it for. So turning on smooth shading and edge split as well, and I'm just going to set that to 88, so you get kind of a nice, you know, a smoothed edge around there. And then the rest of the pipe, the tube is smooth as well. So we want to make sure that it is mirrored on both sides of the street. So again, hit Shift C. I hate how it does that. It zooms me all the way out. Shift C right there, and you can hit Control Alt Shift C now, and then just say Origin to 3D Cursor. And it's now placed that little dot right in the center. Now I can just say Mirror, and now it's placed. Whoa. It's placed one on the opposite side of the street, exactly where it needs to be. And now, as you probably would have guessed, we're just going to use an array modifier. And you want to get the distance looking pretty good. So let's just let's create a few of them. I think that's pretty good distance there, actually. So just where it is currently, maybe a little bit closer. Something, maybe something like that. Yeah, that's pretty good. And then just a matter of just increasing the count. Like so. And that should be that. So we'll give that a quick render now. I'm assuming that's all going to look pretty fine and dandy. Actually, one other thing. Just got to give it a quick material. Very, very quick. Something like that, and just make it a slight grayish color as well. You can also give some texturing to the street lamp if you like. I did for my final scene, but it's not that noticeable, so yeah, I'd say it looks fine as is. So, alrighty, just giving it a quick render now so we can have a look. Yeah, like I said, I mean, it's not perfect, but you can see it looks like a street lamp, which is what we want. Okay, so now we're going to be applying some texturing to our bridge here. Okay, so to do this, it's quite a complex, object. So, any sort of normal texturing you'd normally do isn't really going to work that well here. Now, you've got like a smooth tube object, and you've also got this zigzaggy, support beams everywhere. So, yeah, it's a little bit harder to texture. Easiest way to do it though is to basically UV unwrap everything. So okay, let's just jump over here, set this to UV image editor, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit U. I'll just hit reset. So this is what you'd see if you just open it up, because I did a little bit of work before. I'm going to set this to if you press U, Smart UV Project. Okay, let's give it this little box here. I don't really know what it does. Anyway, it's alright. And now what this has done is it's given just a really rough, kind of choppy looking, UV unwrapping. It's not perfect. In fact, like, it's created like a cut right down the tube, which, shouldn't really be there, but, it's alright. In fact, actually, if I want to, what you could do is, if I select the tube there, hit Control I, hit P, so it just sticks all of those little objects where it should be. Then if I just select the tube, if I hit U and then cylinder projection, I think, yeah, it's actually going to give us a kind of a nicer looking projection. So, yeah, I might actually stick with that one. That was not bad. Okay, so just scaling this up so that it kind of fits, the screen where it is right there. And squishing it down along the y-axis if it's, too tall or whatever. But yeah, something like that should be fine. Now if I hit, we've got to add the texture first. So texture panel, go to image, open, and the image I'm going to use is that grunge map 22 one. So that's this one that you can see right here. And I'm going to set the mapping to be UV, of course. Turn down the color, set that to multiply. And then on the contrast, set that to 2. Turn down the color like so. And there you go. So let's give that a quick render now, and hopefully that looks fine. We might need to actually do some different texturing for the support beams, because it might not have textured fine. In fact, I'm pretty sure it hasn't. So anyway, let's give it a quick look. Yeah, so the support beams look pretty horrible. So way to fix that, if we just duplicate this material, let's call this beams. Duplicate, or not duplicate, but create a separate entity for this texture right here, and then underneath mapping, turn it to generated cube, and then I'm going to set that to 2. Okay, hopefully that should, fingers crossed, should look pretty fine. So the texturing for the tube is looking quite good, but yeah, just those support beams, that's what we're trying to fix now, and it should be looking pretty good, hopefully. Okay, so you can see there's still a little bit of problem. Okay, so you can see there's still a little bit of problem with the texturing, so I might just turn up the, I think at the Y, perhaps. It's a little bit tricky trying to get this to work. I mean, it's not that noticeable. In fact, you could probably get away with just, turning down the color there, and you probably wouldn't really even notice it that much. It's, yeah, I think I've textured in the wrong one now, so let's turn that to 2. Maybe turn the X up. Can never really figure out which direction is which. Yeah, hopefully this will look fine. Yeah, so I mean, it's not perfect, but you can sort of get the idea. As one final step, just to finish off the scene, because I always do this,
got to do it. We're going to add a vignette. So I always do this anyway. I'm sure you know how to do it. Lens distortion node first, turning up lens distortion all the way up to 1. Then adding in a math node. Where is it? What am I looking for? Math. There we go. Set it to greater than. Set that to 0. Add a blur node. Set it to fast Gaussian. Drop that in there. 2020, 20, 20, 20. And then a mix node. Setting the mix node to multiply. Bottom one in there. Top one in there. And now the viewer node. Don't want it to be too much. You could turn it all the way up if you want, but you know, just something to sort of just bring the focus in towards the center. But yeah, there you go. That is pretty much it in a nutshell. So for my final scene, as you can see here, I added a few more extra elements. So I added a little bit of paper down the side of the bridge there. I added a speed limit sign there, according to the Australian standards of speed limit signs. And yeah, I mean, a little bit of fiddling, of course, always to try and get a better result. But you can sort of see the look you've got. So I hope you enjoyed the tutorial, guys. Hope you learned a few things from it. And thanks very much for watching.